Hello and welcome back to the Online Business Case Study Season 1, presented by theentrepreneurirridealong.com. I'm Jake, founder of the Entrepreneur Ride Along, and this is a case study covering my business, AssociatePI.com, which is a business selling study material for the CPCU designation in the insurance industry. It's one of my best performing businesses to date. This is part 7 of the case study, where I am talking about some legal trouble that I got into managing and running this business. Again, this case study is available as a podcast, YouTube video, and SlideShare blog, the whole deal. You can get access to all of that over at theentrepreneurirridealong.com/OBCS. That stands for Online Business Case Study. So I'm going to go ahead and hide myself here because anybody watching the video does not need to watch me the whole time. I'll go ahead and hide myself and we will dive in. So this was back in 2018. It was the biggest mistake of my entrepreneurial career. In fact, it was an $18,547 mistake. Now, that's a lot of money. Nobody can argue that that's a lot of money. That is how much money I paid in legal fees to dispute a cease and desist against my business Associate PI. And I tell this full story over at on episode 33 of the Entrepreneur Ride Along podcast. I did a whole breakdown of it there, so you can see that at theentrepreneurirridealong.com/33 for episode 33 of the podcast. I'm not going to go as in depth today. This is going to be a quick overview. If you want the full story, you can go over there, but I'll just tell you because this is an important part of the story. And I'll tell you what I did, how I got over it, and how I got into this mess in the first place. Here is an actual photo for those of you looking at the slides or the blog or the video. I actually copy and pasted my cease and desist in here. So this was September 2017. I can still remember exactly where I was and what I was doing when I received this email. I was walking home from work. I worked in Boston at the time. And if you've been to Boston, you know that South Station, the train station, South Station and North Station are pretty far apart from each other. They're about a mile apart from each other. Well, my train that I take to get home was at North Station, but I worked over next to South Station. That's the insurance company I was working for at the time. So I had about a 20-minute walk to get to my train, and I would take my train home from work. My train left at 5:20 every day, so I leave work right at 5 to catch my 5:20 train. About halfway there, it's maybe 5:10, 5:15. And I'm checking my phone, I'm listening to music, and all of a sudden I see an email pop up. And the tagline just said, Associate PI, cease and desist immediately. And I froze in the middle of rush hour traffic in Boston, in the middle of the busy sidewalks, everybody running around to try and catch their trains home from work. And I just froze, and I saw the email came in, and I thought, oh God, I hope this is a spammer or some type of marketing tactic email just trying to get me to open up this email. Unfortunately, it wasn't. It was the real deal. I opened up this email, and I read the most terrifying letter of my entire life. It was a PDF attachment. And again, just think this was 2017. And as I've talked about in this case study, by this time, I was doing pretty good. I probably had 6 or 7 courses published, as I've talked about in the previous episodes of this case study. I was on the track to quitting my day job and pursuing this full time. I was making about $5,000 of profit every month, about $60,000 annual profit. You know, at this time in my day job, I was probably only making $80,000 in salary. So I'd almost matched my day job income. And I was starting to think like, okay, I do this full time. I can scale this thing up. I can make more than $80,000 in a year. I can beat the income that I'm making from my day job. So that was a real thought. And I talked to Brooke about this a lot, and we were already kind of planning on it in 2017 until this happened. And then I got this letter, and I'm going to read you some of the scary things that they said. They said, Associate PI is engaging in fraudulent and deceptive practices, and its actions are wrongful and harmful. Another line said, Associate PI must immediately destroy all existing versions, both paper and electronic, of all Associate PI materials. Basically, cease and desist immediately, jump off a bridge and never come back, because you are a criminal. And this was sent by the organization that administers the actual exams for the certification. Now, I'm just a reseller. I'm just a single normal guy helping other people pass their exams by selling my own study material. But they did not like that because I was doing really good on Google with my SEO traffic. I was selling my own courses. People were liking it. But at the same time, I guess I always considered us as partners. And we'll get into this later, but I actually talked to the organization. And I had always considered us partners. I didn't know that they were ever angry at me until I got this letter. I had always assumed that I was helping them because people would come to me in the insurance industry, and I was always promoting this certification, this studying, this education. You got to get that certification. It's what helped me advance my career, get a promotion, get a new job at a different company and a big pay raise. This certification kind of did it all for me. Now I'm giving back. I'm selling study material to help other people pass this certification. At the same time, I'm sending you over to this organization. Go buy their stuff too, buy their study material, sign up for their exams. Everything's got to go through them. But apparently they didn't like that I was out here. And I was not the only one doing this. There was me and probably 5 other people out there that created our own study materials that were in this market of helping people pass this certification. So I was not alone in this, but I was quickly becoming, I'll say the most dangerous. And by that, I mean one of the biggest competitor, probably the biggest seller of study material to help people pass these exams. I just had really the best content. I was the only one with an online course. I had the best practice exams. I offered money back guarantees. I gave great customer support. So I was getting a lot of business. People were coming to me. They were happy about my study material. I received the cease and desist for 3 primary reasons. The claim was I was not trademarking the terms that they owned, being the CPCU and API. I used those 2 terms on my website, and I did not properly trademark them and disclaim that I'm not the owner of that trademark. And that's true. I just did not know enough. And luckily at this time I did have an LLC and everything set up, so I was protected. My personal assets were protected. Nobody could go after me. So that's why I highly, highly recommend you have an LLC set up. And I think I talk about that in episode 31 or 32 of the Entrepreneur Ride Along podcast, where Wesley Henderson came on, an attorney, and just talked about, hey, it's $200 to set up an LLC. Just do it and protect yourself. It's simple. You just got to do it. So luckily I'd taken that advice years ago because my wife, Brooke, was in law school at the time. So of course, one of the first things she made me do was set up an LLC. I use inkfile.com, and they do it all for you, inkfile.com, and they will file all the paperwork, set up your LLC, and they charge like $100 fee. So it's $300 total to protect all of your personal assets. So you got to do it. Use inkfile.com. That's how you just outsource it, have a professional do it, and get it over with. But anyways, I had my LLC, so I was set up and safe, luckily. What I was more scared about was I'm going to lose my entire business. Here goes my $60,000 a year income from this business that I've spent years building. Yeah, this is my future. This is going to help me quit my job and do what I love. This is all going away. So their claims against me were I wasn't trademarking their copyrighted terms that they owned. That's true. I didn't know enough to do that. So they had every right to send me this letter. Their other claim was that I was plagiarizing and copywriting their content. Basically, they claimed that I was just taking the study material sold by this other organization, and I just copied it word for word and was selling it as my own study material and pretending to be this institution. And that I was also just straight up selling copyrighted works, basically just reselling their materials. Both of those claims, not true. Of course, I told you guys I put in months and months of work on these courses. I take the exams myself. I study. I had to do it for my job anyways. Then I spend months writing my own courses in my own language, because the reason people don't like the other study material is it's really complex. It's written like a textbook. It's written like somebody that works in the insurance industry. It's really dry and boring and complex. I write like a 4th grader in basic terms and plain English, and it's easy to understand. The way I learn is by breaking things down as simplified as possible. And that's how I write my study material is here's straight to the point, the definition that you need. Here's a couple supplementary bullet points. Oh, you also have to know these 3 things about this term. That's it. I just make it super simple and easy. And that's why people loved my study material. It was all my own language, all my own words, because I studied the industry study material. I used 4 or 5 different types of study material out there: flashcards and study guides and exam prep guides, practice questions, all the industry study materials that were out there available. Even my competitors, I was using their study material because I needed to pass my exams. That just gave me an outline of the content that was on the exam, which is public information. And so I wrote my own study material based on knowing what concepts you need to know. Oh, you need to know about risk. Oh, you need to know how to calculate standard deviation. Here's how I do it. Here's my definition of risk. Here's how I calculate standard deviation using a financial calculator. Things like that. And the topics are very broad, like what's a balance sheet? What's an income statement? What do you need to know about risk management and the risk management process? All things that I learned on my day job. So I just had to repeat what I learned from college, my day job. I already knew the information. It was in my head. I just put it onto a piece of paper and said, you're going to have to know this for the exam. So those 2 claims, not true. And just absolutely terrifying that I received a cease and desist. And I think they gave me like a week to shut down and remove my existence from the internet. Luckily, I took the right actions. I mentioned that Brooke was in law school at the time, so she said, okay, first things first, go to Boston Bar, bostonlegal.com, something like that, where you could look up who are the certified attorneys in the Boston area where we were living that I could hire for copyright infringement claims to help me with this, and just send back a reply and keep my business maintained. Because again, I had my day job paying our bills. I had $5,000 per month in income from Associate PI, so I could afford a lawyer, and I could just take my income from Associate PI and put it towards a lawyer. Because, hey, if I got to spend $5,000 per month, month over month to keep this business going, it's going to pay off in the long term. If this thing is always going to make $60,000 a year for the rest of my life, it's worth paying substantial money to keep this business going. One of the things that saved me is I sent an email in 2014 when I had first even thought about this idea. I think it was December of 2014. I reached out to this organization that administers and owns these trademark, and I posted the email here in the YouTube series in a slide share. And I basically just said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. I'm studying. My first question is there any reason that I couldn't sell tutorial courses, whether it's automated, online, classroom? Basically, I want to be a tutor. I want to do this. I want to train people for these exams. Can I do this? That simple email really saved my butt. Like this saved my life. I still had this in my Gmail archives. Luckily, I didn't delete it. This one email sparked a much longer conversation. I'm not going to post all that, but it was probably 10 emails back and forth with a very, very nice person from this organization. Like, they were awesome. I actually thought I was on good terms with the organization based on this email, because they told me exactly what to do. Yes, no problem. They told me exactly. They gave me specific instructions to go to my About Us page. And they said, yep, just add this disclaimer on your About Us page. Here's where to trademark these terms only on your About Us page. They did tell me to do that. They literally gave me the text. They took my About Us page and rewrote it and said, hey, here's all you need to do. Put that on your About Us page, and basically you're good to go. Well, this was one of the first things I sent to my lawyer. So I hired a lawyer through the Boston Bar Association. I think he was $200 or $300 per hour. And, hours rack up quick. One half-an-hour phone call, 1 hour-long phone call, and you're doing that every single day almost, where you're going through every single little line on the cease and desist letter. And I got to give him the whole background of my business and all this. And then I send him this email and say, hey, here's a 20-part email chain going back and forth. Back in 2014, they told me this was okay. It takes him an hour to read that and digest it and analyze it. So it adds up quick when it's $200, $300 per hour. Honestly, $200, $300 per hour range is probably on the cheaper end. So I kind of got lucky there, but I had to put down a $5,000 retainer fee, and I still actually have my retainer with him just in case I need to ever go back to him or pick this up again. But I put $5,000 down up front, and then I'm constantly burning through that retainer, and I have to refill it. $5,000 here, $5,000 there. Every couple of months, I got to put in a new $5,000 to keep working with this attorney. But anyways, I sent him over this email thread with the specific instructions that I followed per their guidance. And this is really what saved me, is he basically took this and sent it back to them and said, hey, like, here, you guys told us this was okay. My client, you guys talked to my client already. Here's this great conversation that he had with an employee of your company that said it was okay and gave him instructions on how to move forward. And I loved working with this person from the company that I talked with back in 2014. Super nice, encouraging me to do this, telling me, like, basically building me up that, yeah, what I said was what I said at the beginning, where I thought I was helping people and sending people to this organization and helping increase the visibility of this certification. That's how their employees saw it. That's how I saw it. So we had a great relationship. Until 3 years later in 2017, where they dropped the hammer on me. But that email really saved me. So that was one of our first replies, but it didn't stop there. This went on for about a year or two, actually nearly 2 years of back and forth between my lawyer and their lawyers. Constantly new little things, new little nitpicky little items. My lawyer asks a question, they ask a question back, we ask another question, they ask a question, we provide a response, we ask a question, they provide a response. It is maybe a week or two between each reply, and in between there, I'm talking to my attorney, they're talking on their side. We're going back and forth for over 2 years. That's how it racked up in $18,547 in total legal fees because of this one stupid issue that I could have avoided if I just knew to trademark the appropriate terms. So I highly, highly recommend that email that I sent in the beginning, or that I just showed on the last slide, where I reached out to the organization. You have to do that. Just get kind of a paper trail. That I kind of feels gross saying paper trail, because you're not trying to trick anybody or get anything in writing, but just get permission first to ask and just say, hey, can I do this? If so, like, what do I need to know? Hey, here's the disclaimer I want to use. Hey, I'm going to trademark your terms. Again, you can look up really easily on Google who owns the copyright of a term. If you're selling study material for a certification like this, which is what I'm recommending in this business model, you have to use the little copyright R symbol or the TM trademark symbol. If you go to associatepi.com right now, you'll see it everywhere. You'll see everything's trademarked and copyright symbol with disclaimers all over the place. But how it played out in the end, after 2 years of back and forth with them, I had all of my full courses reviewed by the other legal team. They confirmed that, correct, there is no copyright. I was not selling their copyrighted materials. I think they just threw that claim in there, assuming that I was straight up copying their study material and reselling their study material, which is a bold claim. I wish they had reviewed it first, but they made that claim and hurt my feelings. But once they actually took a look and I gave them access to my entire platform and said, take a look, I didn't copy anything. They were able to see and confirm that I did not even copy a single word or a single sentence. None of it was copied from their study material. It was all my own words. And you could tell, because again, I write like a fourth grader in simple plain English. I don't write like a professional textbook writer. So it was pretty obvious that it's my own language. But they had to do that, and that took a lot of back and forth. That cost me a lot of money going back and forth and giving them access through my attorney to their attorney, back to my attorney, back to me. I also had to point out that none of my competitors were properly using the trademark, and they still aren't. If you look at some of my competitors out there, they're not copyright marking and disclaiming the right disclaimers on these terms. So basically, they were just picking on me because I was the biggest one, and they were going to make an example out of me and then go after all the little guys. So I pointed that out, and there's just one point of like, hey, why are you picking on us and not everybody else? I actually had rewrote all of my courses just to be safe, and it took over a year to do this. So I think it was 7 or 8 courses. I forget how many I had at the time. I went through, and I was so scared that I might have had like a string of 5 words that were the same as their course or something like that. Or maybe I said risk management in the same way that they did, or maybe I had it in the same order as their course, which is another big thing, because copyright isn't just word for word. It's also order of, okay, you talked about this topic first, second, and third. You put it in order ABC. I also had ABC as my order. So copyright infringement because I copied their order. Now, I didn't do that because, again, I wrote my course without looking at theirs. I just used the concepts and I put it in the order that I thought was best for easy digestion. But still, I was scared that, okay, maybe I did it by accident or something like that. So being terrified and at the advice of my lawyer, I just went back and rewrote everything. I improved. I took this time to actually sit down and improve all of my courses. I talked about this in part 6 part 5 or part 6 of the case study, I talked about this, where I talked about how I improved on my courses to make them look more professional, because prior to this, it was basically just a bunch of bullet points and definitions and bullet points. It was basically like a study guide, and I was only selling the course for $185. Well, in 2018, I sat down, I rewrote all of my courses. I added this really nice professional content of intro sections where I broke down the most difficult parts of each chapter. Oh, make sure you focus on this. I added an outro section where I gave a summary of the most important definitions and recap questions. I just made sure people focused on the important topics. I took my bullet points and I broke them. I bolstered them up and made them full paragraphs so that people had more content. Basically, there was more to read, but it gave you a more comprehensive understanding of the topics of the exam so that you could absolutely pass your exam using my study guides. Because before, people sometimes had to buy my course and then maybe buy some other supplementary studying material, because mine was really bare bones, just straight to the point. Like I said, bullet points and definitions. Now it's a fully fledged course. It's almost like a textbook in an online course. It's still the same concepts of plain English and less fluff, so you can still study faster, pass your exam in less time with less effort. That's my value proposition. But that took really a year to 2 years to rewrite every single course, 8 courses. Because remember, it takes me about 3 to 6 months to write one course. So rewriting all of them took about 2 years. But it was worth it because I rewrote everything. I added a ton of value. I launched a mobile app at this time. And I increased the price of my course because I made them so much better. I made them professional. I hired a professional editor. So I started selling my courses for $425 each because I did all that work and people were still buying them. So because I added extra value, I could increase the price that I was selling it for. So at the end, it worked out okay, but because of that exhaustion of writing insurance courses for 2 straight years and not working on anything else, it sent me way back in my journey to quitting my job and generating enough funds because I had to pay so much to my attorney. I couldn't work on any other businesses, scale or start any other businesses because I was stuck on this one, rewriting these courses. And it just took so long and so much energy that I did not want to work on this business anymore. So from, I'd say 2018 to 2020, I basically didn't do any work on this business. I didn't release any new courses, but prior to the cease and desist, I was cranking out courses like 1 or 2, maybe 3 per year. I took a break for about 2 or 3 years because I was so sick of these certifications and writing these courses, and it was just so much work, and it was mind-numbing that I needed to work on something else. I needed to step away and just let it sit in the background and automatically generate revenue. So the business took a little hit because of that, because I took a big step back and I stopped launching courses. Not a big hit. I mean, I was still bringing in $50,000 to $60,000 in revenue, but by this time it should be like a $80,000 to $100,000 business, where now it's still in the $60,000 range because I'm now in 2021 and 2022 just getting back to launching new courses and writing new courses. I was supposed to be doing this years ago, but I had to step away because I had to rewrite all these courses and it was just exhausting. I had to step away, so it really set me back. So I rewrote all my courses. I also had to remove every single podcast, YouTube video, Facebook post, and Twitter post. I had to take them all down. YouTube and podcast, I had to redo them because I was using, I was talking about these terms, and I was, in my YouTube videos, I was showing slides just like I am in these videos, and I was not properly trademarking the terms. Well, in YouTube, you can't just re-upload a new video. You have to delete it. Like you can't upload over your old video. You have to delete the video and re-upload a new one. So that caused a big hit to my business too, because all that ranking and organic traffic that I built up through YouTube, I showed you guys earlier in a previous part of this case study, thousands of views on YouTube and subscribers. I had to delete all those videos and re-upload them to the point where they're just starting over from scratch. So I had to regenerate all that organic traffic ranking and trust from YouTube to get those videos back up there and generating traffic. Facebook and Twitter posts, I had to delete all of them because I was not properly trademarking the terms and there was no disclaimer in there. So basically, podcast too, I had to re-record all of those And anytime I said the term, I just say, I don't own this term. Anytime I say CBCU, I got to add a disclaimer at the beginning and the end and read off my disclaimer. Whole mess. So basically everything I've ever published, I had to take down and redo. Every blog post, every page, everything I've ever published, my entire website, I had to go through, find every single term and add the registered R or the TM, the trademark symbol, to every single term on my entire website. I did this manually for a while, and then I finally hired somebody that could do it for me. I hired a virtual assistant, and I hired a web team that could do a little bit of a search and replace from the back end. They could kind of search and replace, and they were able to get like half of the terms, but then I still had to hire a VA to go through and manually check each one. Because if I ever missed one, I'm liable, and they can come right back with a cease and desist if just one term is not properly trademarked with the copyright symbol or the TM symbol. So all that work, that took so long and so frustrating and so boring, going through looking for every single term on every single thing I've ever published on the internet, on my website and off my website, to properly trademark and use that little copyright symbol with a disclaimer. I also, in the end, like really all that it came down to, all other claims against me were wrong or proven incorrect. Basically, in the end, all I had to do was add a disclaimer to my website. So in my menu bar at Associate PI, you'll see there's a legal disclaimer. You click that, and it opens up to the disclaimer page. Every course, the footer, every course, email, web page, anything on my website, I had the disclaimer that they gave me through the cease and desist process from their attorneys. I published that everywhere. They said to put it all over your website. Basically, anytime I use a trademark term that I do not own, I have to label it, and then in the footer, add the disclaimer that says, I don't own this trademark. It's not mine. It's owned by this other organization. So in the end, that's what I had to do. It's a ton of work. Again, that's why it took me 2 years back and forth and all this work, and that's why I was burnt out from this business, because of the cease and desist. Whereas trademarking every term, redoing every podcast, Facebook, YouTube, updating every page, rewriting every course, updating every course, all this incredibly exhausting work resulted in me finally just kind of getting let off the hook. We actually just stopped hearing from them eventually. Resulted in $18,547 total in legal fees, nearly 2 years of back and forth. Again, I was around $200 an hour with my attorney, so that's a lot of back and forth and a lot of work for him, a lot of work for me. Years and years of work, and in the end, it was basically just, hey, add the trademark symbol and add a disclaimer. So don't make the same mistake that I did. Make sure you add your disclaimer. Talk to the institution that is administering the certification before you begin. Ask their permission. Trademark disclaimers. Don't make the same mistakes that I made, and set up an LLC before you begin, because that is critical, and it's only $300 to get started. So make sure you do it. So that does it for part 7 of the online business case study. This is just a major thing that I went through with AssociatePI.com. So that's why I wanted to make it its own episode here, just to tell you what I went through and give you the warning. Because if you are starting this type of business, I highly, highly, highly recommend you heed my advice here and make sure you don't make the same mistakes that I did. Another new announcement, I talked about this on the last part of the case study, but I am working on a new book. I'm actually taking what I'm talking about here and I'm putting it into action in a new book. It's called Use Your Job to Quit Your Job. You can find that at theentrepreneurridealong.com/job. This book is all about how you can use your day job to start your first business, a really easy business that you can use to quit your job. And then once you're there, it's basically a stepping stone into full-time entrepreneurship where you can work on projects that you are more passionate about. But in this book, I will show you exactly how to find the idea, validate the idea, start the business so you can quit your job and start monetizing it. Exactly what I did with AssociatePI.com. I'm not passionate about insurance or the CPCU certification. I like starting online businesses. It was a great first successful online business because I had tried other ones in the past, but I've just seen it over and over again that the best place to start for your first business is using your day job where you are an expert. Take your expertise, turn that into a business, quit your job, and then start a project to start your next business that you are more passionate about. That's what I did with AssociatePI.com. Once again, you can copy this business. I put together a mini course over at theentrepreneurridealong.com/OBCS1. That's the number 1. You can check that out, and there's a little mini course where you can follow along with this case study and directly copy my business idea. So that does it for part 7 of the Online Business Case Study Season 1. Next is part 8, where I'm talking about next steps, and now we're talking about the future and what I'm doing next. So thank you for listening and watching part 8 of the Online Business Case Study. Again, you can find the full case study at theentrepreneurridealong.com/OBCS is where you can find the full case study. And here's my legal troubles. Again, I'm talking about all the good, the bad, the ugly. And now next I'm going to talk about the future. So there is the bad and the ugly that I went through with Associate PI. Don't make the same mistakes that I did. Just take that little extra baby step. Protect yourself, protect your business. And again, thank you for listening to part 7 of the Online Business Case Study. I will catch you on the next episode.